We're live, friends. Welcome to welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm live from Philadelphia. My name is Ranjit Anipu, and I'm a co-founder of BWasteWise, the largest platform for video knowledge and live events in circular economy and waste management. Now, before we begin the online conference, I have some housekeeping notes. Recording of this conference will be available after this live broadcast. And if you'd like to post comments or ask questions, please use the chat box right below this video stream. And after each presentation, we'll take 2 questions for that speaker, and we'll have a longer Q&A session for all speakers towards the end of this conference. I hope this knowledge sharing helps you, and if you'd like to help us back, please share the recording of this conference and some very nice words about ISWA and BWasteWise efforts with your networks and colleagues. Before I go, I wanted to remind you that we have more webinars with some of the best minds in the world scheduled for the rest of the year in collaboration with ISWA, WasteAid UK, and other partners. So please subscribe to our monthly newsletter and follow us on social media to stay updated. Finally, we are all, I think, at a point where we need billions of solutions to build a just society, create jobs, improve public health, quality of life, and our environment. And we can do all of that by solving waste. That's the good news. And for that, we need a platform bigger than what BWasteWise currently is, and we're working towards that. And we need more people who are as committed and as energetic as the women and men I've been working with at ISWA's Young Professionals Group over the past few months. So with that, handing this over to Mohammed Al-Samet. Thank you and enjoy. Mohammed, take it over from here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ranjit. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to the very first event to officially launch. To officially launch the first ISWA YPG online conference, the effects of improper management in Southeast Asia, local challenges and global solutions. And on behalf of the organizing committee, it is our great pleasure and honor to welcome all of you. I am Mohammed Al-Samet, the coordinator for this online conference. As we all are aware that the ISWA YPG online conference is a jointly organized event by ISWA YPG and BWasteWise. So I'll just Ranjit mentioned that BWasteWise is the largest platform for video knowledge and live events in circular economy and waste management. To start this remarkable event, I'm pleased to invite Dr. Andrea Winterstetter, the chairperson of ISWA YPG Global, to deliver the welcoming speech and to moderate the keynote speaker session. Welcome, Andrea. Hello, Andrea.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Andrea Winterstetter. I'm the chair of the ISWA Young Professionals Group and the chair for this conference. Do you hear the echo as well, or
yes,
is it only me?
Go on, yeah.
Okay.
The sound is clear.
Okay. So I'm currently based in Belgium, close to Antwerp, where I'm working as a postdoctoral researcher at VITO, the Flemish Institute for Technological Research, in the Sustainable Materials Unit within the policy team. I would like to welcome you to our first online conference on the effects of improper waste management in Southeast Asia, local challenges, global solutions. The beauty of the ISWA Young Professionals Group lies in its diversity and its openness. With more than 100 members from over 40 countries, we have very different professional and cultural backgrounds, but we are united by our common passion for more sustainable production, consumption, and disposal practice. Last year, we identified and mapped the world's biggest waste challenges, and we found that the most common waste challenge facing the world today relates to sanitary disposal of waste. So in many developing countries, the lack of basic infrastructure and open burning and open dumping of waste is prevalent, and it has severe impacts on human health and the environment. But only talking about these challenges is not enough. Therefore, we have launched our flagship project 2018 in spring this year, including the global campaign #WhatHappensToMyWaste. This campaign aims at raising awareness on the final destination of waste in different corners of the world. So we invite each and every one of you to actively participate, discuss in our global campaign on Facebook. The second important part of this flagship project is this online conference, Effects of Improper Waste Management in Southeast Asia, Local Challenges, Global Solutions. The idea was to give early stage researchers and young professionals from all around the globe the opportunity to present their research and to discuss with conference participants on how solutions that have worked in other parts of the world might be copied to tackle waste management challenges in Southeast Asia. And yeah, to be honest, I was not sure whether this concept would work, but thanks to a highly committed team, we made it happen. And I'm very proud of our team. So thank you for all your efforts, especially to you, Mohammed, to Rami, to Vish, Kat, Nina, and Frida. And an extra thank you goes to Ranjit and the Be Wastewise team for providing the infrastructure, recording the meeting, and helping with marketing. And thank you also to our two keynote speakers, Antonis and Imanol, as well as to all the young professionals who submitted abstracts, and most importantly, to those who are presenting today. So the three best speakers will be invited to present their work at the Young Professionals special session at the ISWA World Congress 2018 in Kuala Lumpur. And the criteria are first, novelty and scientific content, and B, original and creative style of presentation. The solutions of the world's biggest waste challenges are by no means simple. We urge decision makers to collaborate more closely on research and to share their experiences and solutions. Therefore, let's start the global waste dialogue today. And I wish us all a great conference and enjoy, and thank you very much. Yeah, now I'm taking great pleasure in introducing our first keynote speaker, Antonis Mavropoulos, who will give a keynote speech on the ISWA initiatives Marine Litter and Open Dumpsites. So Antonis is the founder and CEO of D-Waste and president of ISWA. He has been involved in solid waste management projects for 20 years in 20 countries, and he has completed more than 150 projects. His recent research work deals with globalization, megacities, mobile apps, and the challenge of Internet of Things. He is a fanatic futurist and a chairs lover. He has invented the Waste Atlas, a global interactive waste management app, and he has also designed several mobile apps for recycling and waste management purposes. In addition, Antonis has published and participated in the writing of several books and scientific publications. Let's welcome Antonis Mavropoulos. So yeah, Antonis, the floor is yours.
Hi, Antonis. Can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
Okay. Is it better now? Can you hear me now? Okay. So, Andrea, I was telling that in my short CV, you have also to add that I'm a very good friend of Rajiv and Big Waste Wise, which I consider it's probably the best know-how sharing platform in the world on waste management and circular economy. I want to really congratulate Big Waste Wise for this great effort, and I'm very happy that ISWA is working together with Big Waste Wise in this initiative. So, Okay, let me start by sharing my screen, because I have a presentation to show you, and I want you to go through that. Do you look my presentation now?
Antonis, no, we don't.
Okay, just a minute.
Can you, after loading the presentation, go to screen share on the top left?
Is it okay now?
No, we still don't see it.
Okay. I picked the screen share. Let me do it again. Okay, screen share. It says that the screen is shared now.
Okay.
But it's not. You are still looking at me.
Yeah, I still see you. Yeah.
Okay. Let me do it the other way around. Okay. Start screen share.
Oh, there. Yeah.
Now you are looking you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's start. So, Andrea, thank you very much for this initiative. First of all, for me, the Young Professionals Group is a very important element of ISWA's new profile. I really believe that the openness and the wide spread audience of this group is an asset. And I do believe that with initiatives like this one, your first online conference, you really set the terms and the perspective for a future growth, because the Young Professionals Group is mostly related with know-how sharing. Now, I will speak about three things. What is marine litter and where it comes from? I will speak about marine litter and its linkages with waste management and how to address the problem. My lecture will be based on the outcomes of ISWA's work, but not only, as I do believe we need much more things to do than what ISWA has done. So let's start with this. Let's start with what is marine litter and where it comes from. I see that one major issue is to understand the science behind marine litter and to understand exactly what we have to deal with. So at this slide, you can see from a sample of 150 kilos that was taken in Alphonse Island, a remote island nearby Seychelles at the Western Indian Ocean. So out of these 150 kilos, we found out 20% beach sandals, these famous flip-flops, roughly 20% glass bottles, 10 to 15% fishing items or related, 10 to 15% items from the fishing industry. And here you can see where is this island. We found all of these samples in this beach. It's very close to Seychelles, but really far away from any other continental area. And this is important to be discussed because this island takes mostly touristic waste, touristic plastic waste, and tourism is a great contributor to marine litter. Keep this in mind, we're gonna come back on that. Now, the problem is that marine litter is becoming a global challenge. It's very difficult to find any place in the world which will be plastic pollution free. There is no place from which we can escape from marine litter. We identified marine litter pollution in the Mariana Trench, just in front of the Philippines. It's the deepest part of the world, 11 kilometers depth. But we also identified marine litter in Point Nemo. Point Nemo actually is an island which we found it just 15 years ago. It's located roughly 2,700 kilometers equidistantly from 3 different far-flung islands. And actually, the nearest humans are often the astronauts in the International Space Station that flies just 400 kilometers above. Even there, the shoreline is full of plastics. So this is a dimension that we need to consider. We are speaking about a global problem. But for me, the real problem is not the visible one. We have to understand that marine litter and plastic pollution is a much more complex and complicated problem than is usually perceived. So let's see the material flows. What we have is roughly 4.8 to 12.7 million tons per year emitted from microplastics, direct emissions from coastal zones. Then we have 1.1 to 2.4 million tons per year emitted by rivers, which is a very important element. Maybe this is even more, but we don't have the quantification available. Then we have something about 10% of marine litter coming from the fishing industry. And then we have primary and secondary microplastics, where the emissions levels are really unknown. There is a rough estimation that it's about 32,000 to 236,000 metric tons already in the oceans, but maybe it's 10 times more. We just don't have the data to quantify it in details. Now, why microplastic is a bigger problem? Because as you see here, this is a small plastic fiber which has been eaten by a bigger transparent tube, which is actually plankton. So this is the way microplastics are entering the food chain. And you really don't know what will be the long-term impact of that, but for sure, it's not gonna be for good. Microplastics are also available in commercial salts. Here you can see a recent publication with the microplastic content and the different materials found in several commercial salts. So, okay, plastic pollution is one thing. Microplastic entering in the food chain creates a long-term impact for which we are still uncertain, but we have no reason to believe that it's going to be secondary, or we have no reason to underestimate. So, where comes marine litter from? Well, this is a study that was made in the Baltic Sea in 2013. So we identified that 25% of the marine litter comes from touristic activities. Then we have recreational fishing and recreational boating that contribute roughly 12%, 4% from normal shipping, and 5% from the ports. And then we have something like 19% from waste collection, leakages, and households. What it means is that if we consider this a very representative, it means that if we go to Southeastern Asia, which is the largest waste generating continent, with the waste that has been increased from 0.3 to 1.8 billion tons between 2012 and 2025, it means that in Southeastern Asia, the problem is much bigger. Southeastern Asia is really the hotspot of the world in terms of marine litter. And it's not only because the waste management has not been evolved according to the waste generation. It's also because there are practices in places like the one you see here in Indonesia, where in some areas, dumping waterway concerns as much as 18% of the rural areas or 10% of the urban areas. And open burning and burying in ground and dumping any other environmental media is a very usual practice. This is also a cultural problem, as we know very well in Malaysia, where people tend to throw away all the waste in the rivers. But it's not only the problems in waste management, it's also the problem related to the growth of tourism, the fishing industry. As I told you already, tourism is a very big contributor to marine litter, especially tourism in the coastal areas. So in Southeast
Andrea, can you hear Antonis?
the fishing industry here, it is has to do with all these three main elements: fishing industry, touristic activities, plus the problems in waste management. And this is the whole picture. Now, what is the result of this? Well, the result is, according to specific studies that have been implemented, that in Indonesia, 28% of individual fishes and 55% of all fishes have found with anthropogenic debris inside them. The same comes from USA, and I want you to come with a conclusion. Maybe in USA the result is not 28 but 25, but that it means that we don't know where this marine litter comes from. Maybe Southeastern Asia is the hotspot of the world in terms of marine litter, but pollution recognizes no border and it goes all around the world through the streams. Back in 2017 in ISWA, we made this great report, Prevent Marine Plastic Litter Now. This time we identified a typology of the interventions required to reduce marine litter from a waste management perspective. And here you can see the main idea and the intervention points. What I want you to see, because the graph is really complicated, is that there are at least 7 different interventions that need to be done, and all of them, they have the same scope: to improve waste management, in specific from collection, from industrial waste, from port waste management, improving recycling, and things like that. And if you do all of this, what you can do is to reduce substantially the level of marine litter leakages from the current waste management systems. These interventions will help us a lot to reduce marine litter, maybe by 25 or 50%, but they will not manage the marine litter from touristic activities and the fishing industry. In practice, what you see is that 38 out of the 50 biggest dump sites in the world, they are straightforward related with marine litter leakages because they are very close either to rivers or the seashore. And this is a measure of the challenge of waste management related to marine litter. If we would be able to close these 38 dump sites, then definitely from these specific areas, we will have thousands of tons less marine litter leakages every year. Of course, we need more science because each country is different. If you go to Philippines, you will find out that 74% of the plastic leakages comes from waste that has been collected. So the leakages are coming after the collection because there is no infrastructure to manage the waste. But if you go to China, you will see that 84% of the leakages are coming from waste that is not collected. We need to make a specific analysis for each country, for each region, for each beach. As an example, this is the beach from Santos. This is the biggest port in Latin America. The biggest problem in Santos is the plastic pollution that goes inside the mangrovian vegetation, plus the microplastic accumulation in its great sandy beaches. We don't know where those microplastics are coming from. And we are looking for an opportunity to identify more with a lot of research. And I'm very happy to announce you that yesterday, the municipality of Santos officially released the memorandum of understanding between this municipality and the Port of Santos with ISWA that aims to not only the origins of marine litter pollution in the area of Santos, but also a proper plan to reduce it substantially within the next 10 years. Now, of course, its material is also different. When we talk about marine litter, we are talking about a plethora of materials. And this plethora of materials has different recycling behavior and characteristics. So you can see that we recycle something like 15% of PET, but just 3% and 3% of low-density polyethylene. That means that we have to start thinking about the loops of materials, material per material, and not just in general like plastics. And you have to think that, especially in South, is a very important role for the informal recyclers. What you see here is the average weights they can have dealing with different materials. Now, obviously, informal recyclers are less likely to collect low value and high bulk plastic waste. Instead, they prefer to collect high value and low bulk plastic waste. But that means that after the informal recyclers' interventions, per waste stream, it's much more difficult to be utilized and be subject of extracting extra added value. And of course, this also goes very close to the discussion we have for a long time about the market captured value, which is another key element here is that the price of plastic recyclables is straightforward related with the oil price. So when the oil price goes up, recycling plastic becomes more profitable. But when it goes down, it becomes very vulnerable. And this is so many oil fluctuations in prices. Recyclers have become very careful on how they set the programs, and they tend to recycle materials that are only profitable under the very conservative projections for the oil price. And this problem will become even bigger because now we have the China ban, which really disrupts the industry. So, what can we do? Can you hear me?
Yeah, Antonis, you have less than a minute left.
Okay, what can we do? Just started to ban all forms of disposable single-use plastics. Okay, that's one thing. But you have to wonder if it really makes, when you see the whole correlation between plastic production, circular economy, and marine litter, then you will identify that probably single-use plastics are important symbolically, but a very small part of the problem, and their waste management is not the biggest challenge. And some people, they have proposed the so-called marine litter hierarchy, which is like this. First, you have to prevent and reduce generation of waste that contributes to marine litter, to avoid the litter touching the marine environment, then collect litter from the marine environment, recycle, energy recovery, and final disposal. I think this makes sense if you think it's already in place. But you will find out 70% of the marine litter goes at the sea bottom, 15% flows or floats, and the next 15% sooner or later is washed ashore. So this is important to be understood in order to put the question, what are our interventions? There is no silver bullet, but if you allow me that, this is what we are doing today. We are doing a lot of cleanups and waste removal. And a lot of publicity has been given to systems to remove what floats from the oceans. This is really helpful, but it's also problematic because it takes our attention away from the real problem, which is microplastic, and from the plastics that are in the bottom. So the more we are dealing with cleanups and innovative waste removals, the more attention and resources from the main problem, which is to stop the plastic leakages. Then the second you are doing, we are trying to improve recycling. This will help, but as I already told you, there are technical constraints that do not allow too much hope on that. The third thing in the hierarchy, and I think this is a very important element, is to close the dams and improve a pipe solution, and it is. We dispose of litter as much as possible. And then we have bans and taxes. For them, we need to go beyond symbolism. We need to go on substance-based bans and taxes, and maybe we need to say that we consider hazardous. Finally, circular economy for plastic and consumption is the only way on the long term. But unfortunately, is the things that we are discussing less today. So, how to finish? There is a planetary problem, but I'm afraid it's becoming a planetary limit. Here you see the three questions that is the methodology to identify if something is a planetary limit. So is the pollution irreversible or poorly reversible? I think it's very easy to answer yes. We will continue to pollute the oceans with plastic years more. We have just started to understand how important is this pollution and how irreversible it is. Question number 2, are the effects only detectable when the problem is planetary scale? Because you have just started less than 5 years to understand the planetary scale of the problem and the huge effect in our food chain. Now, we are not yet ready to answer the last question, if the disruptive effect of marine litter will be, how serious it will be ecosystem and processes. But the precautionary principle, good can we wait if we have microplastics in the food chain. So I want to finish by saying you that it's time to rethink, remake, and reboot all the issues about marine litter and plastic economy. We have to face the problem in its big picture, which is our economy, our industrial activities, and part of this is waste management. And we have to understand that there is no solution as long as we limit our discussions in the framework of waste management only. Waste management can resolve maybe 40 or 50% of the problem in some cases, but it's not able to resolve the whole. Marine litter comes from every part of our industrial activities.
Great. Thank you very much, Antonis, for this excellent presentation. We have one very quick question. We're running a bit late already, but one quick question is waste incineration a solution for the developing countries in Southeast Asia, taking into account its cost that could be diverted into waste prevention and reuse instead? Good collection schemes and new circular economic model. So is waste incineration, is it the solution then?
Yeah, I understand. Well, I think that big discussion, there are reports that support that the only immediate solution we have, especially in Southeast Asia, is to energy plants to reduce the leakages. But I think this is a little bit oversimplified, because the problem in most of the Southeastern Asia places, and not only, the problem in most of the developing world is that we lack collection systems. So it makes no sense to build waste-to-energy plants unless we have a full system that supports collection, transfer, and recycling. So if you ask me what is the solution, I will reply again, there is no silver bullet. We need synergies between all the technologies. We need to consider the whole life cycle of plastic waste. And yes, if we do this in a systemic way, there will be cases where waste-to-energy is part of the solution. But as a standalone component, in countries with 20 and 30% collection rate, it's meaningless.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you again, Antonis. And yeah, I would like to introduce you then our second keynote speaker for today's conference, Imanol Zabaleta, who will give a keynote speech on plastic recycling solutions. Imanol is a member of the ISWA Young Professional Group. He got his bachelor's degree in agricultural engineering from the Public University of Navarre in Spain, 2011, and a master's of science in urban environmental management from Wageningen University in the Netherlands in 2013. Currently, he works at EAWAG in Switzerland with a major research focus on decision support tool for selecting organic waste treatment technologies. Also, he's focusing on regional metabolism of natural resources and resource extraction and the recovery from organic waste. Let's welcome Imanol Zabaleta. Imanol, the floor is yours, please.
Imanol, can you unmute yourself?
Thanks, Ranjit. So, can you hear me now? Is it fine? Good. So first words need to go to VWasteWise and Andrea and the YPG team for allowing me and giving me this opportunity to spend these 10 minutes talking about such an exciting topic as plastic waste management. And I prepare a short presentation of 10 minutes on the issue of how we can manage plastic. It has a lot to do with what Antonis just mentioned. So I will guide you through basically two main ideas that I would like you to take home after my talk. The first one is, now we are really focusing just on plastic management. And as Antonis said, one of the final problems that this is causing is marine litter, but we will really quickly look through the life cycle of plastic in order to understand where some of the interventions that we already heard in the previous presentation can be done. And in order to understand this, I will also introduce 3 basic features that plastic as a material has, because that's also important to consider, because that would open us or close us several recovery options. For this, I prepared a few slides that I'd like to also share with you. So I'm going to share screens. Hopefully it works now. Good. Okay. So let's go for the presentation. The first question is, what is plastic? I don't know how familiar the audience of this webinar is on plastics, but plastics are basically, it's a synthetic material composed of organic polymers, and the chemical structure of these organic polymers determines if a plastic is considered PET or polypropylene or polyester, etc. The features that I want to talk about plastics are, first is the capacity of plastic to be remelted and reused again, and that's when we distinguish 2 main types of plastics. We talk about thermoplastics, if the plastic is it's able to remelt and solidify again repetitively, and that allows this type of material recovery. And luckily, 80% of the plastics in the market are thermoplastics. And then on the other side, we have thermosets, which only allow to be melted just once. So their material recovery from the point of view of material, it's limited in that sense, right? So that's important to distinguish. And the next feature is where the source of these polymers is. And there we distinguish 2 types of plastics. We can talk about fossil-based plastics, which are plastics that derive from fossil fuels such as oil or natural gas, etc. But then we also have bio-based plastics, which derive from biomass, be it from plant biomass or microbial biomass. And the third feature is whether this material, these plastics, is biodegradable or not. And there is a huge discussion here with bioplastics and not bioplastics, and sometimes even using confusing terms. But basically, we talk about bioplastics when they are either bio-based or biodegradable. Unfortunately, between brackets, most of our conventional plastics, the ones that we know, the ones that we are familiar with, fall and in this quadrant. They are fossil-based and they are non-biodegradable. This basically around 98% of the existing plastics fall in this category. And then we have 1 to 2% of plastics which fall in the other 3 quadrants, making interesting combinations. Probably many people are not aware that fossil-based plastics can also be biodegradable sometimes, right? So it's interesting to understand where the material that we are dealing with falls, because that opens a whole new opportunity of recovery, which in literature is referred as organic recovery. Good. So now I'd like you to have a look to this very simple life cycle scheme of plastics, right? Like, we can simplify it to the maximum extent, which would basically consist of these elements. We have the raw materials, then we have the plastic manufacturing process where we produce the plastic, and then we get to the consumers. The consumers, then that's when the plastic management starts, right? And there we distinguish two. I mean, we can open this more, but the basic 2 components would be uncollected plastic waste or unmanaged plastic waste, and then we have collected plastic waste. Good. So now, where do we want to intervene? Where are the interventions possible and the challenges for these interventions? There are 3 main points before I open that. There are 3 main points where we can intervene. The first one is actually, once we have the material, what do we do with it? That's one intervention point. Then we have also, what do we actually do with the uncollected plastic waste? How can we avoid this? There we have a whole different set of interventions with which Antonis already explained, which are also covered in the Marine Litter Task Force Manual. And then we have also interventions in this side, which are mainly covering prevention, right? So here I open this diagram. We see the recovery possibilities, but also reuse. And finally, we have prevention strategies, which will come more into this section. So very few examples, and very briefly, because there are numerous examples for everything. When it comes to material recovery, as I mentioned before, we can remelt and melt and produce again the same plastic bottles if we are talking about thermoplastics, but we can also do a lot of many other things with these plastics, right? And these are very local solutions, but inspiring at the same time. We can use plastic to produce any sorts of houseware. We can use plastics to produce tiles following the waste aid, heat instructions, or for construction material, etc. Then we go to organic recovery. Here we distinguish they need to be biodegradable plastics, and the most common approach is to use industrial composting, which requires these conditions. And then there are again opening whole new ideas and opportunities, such as the plastic-eating worms, Galeria melonella. So these are all new things that are slowly opening this very small sector at the moment, still in its infancy in a way. And the final opportunity would be thermal recovery, right? Extracting the energy content contained in the bonds, in the molecular bonds of plastic. Good, that's all about plastic recovery. However, material recovery. However, there is one big challenge here, and that's to get into this recovery options, plastic needs to come already segregated. And not only segregated, we need to incentivize the collection of plastic separately. And for that, we need strong and stable markets, which are often lacking for this material, right? So here, very simple but interesting example are the different waste banks that exist in different countries of the world. Here I'm showing the one called Plastic Bank, which is from Haiti. It's an interesting initiative where people bring their materials and exchange it for money or whatever, and then that material is sold as a fair trade plastic to manufacturers, right? Like Coca-Cola, instead of buying virgin plastic, 100% of virgin plastic, could decide to also buy a given percentage of this fair trade plastic and get a brand. So these are interesting initiatives that create those stable markets. Now we move into the other end of the life cycle, which is the uncollected plastic. I'm not going to expand here because Antonis gave us already a lot of insights. The challenge here is to collect this waste first, but also to avoid it. And there we need to make sure that there is collection service, that we prevent litter, that we upgrade the landfills, etc. And now we move into the prevention side, and with that I will finish. Here, two very simple interventions are obviously coming from legislation. Legislation can serve either to ban plastics or to disincentivize the use of plastics with taxes, for example, etc. Here, this map that is available in Wikipedia shows countries that have already banned in green the lightweight plastic bags, or in yellow those that have already implemented some sort of taxation to these plastic bags, or different other combinations, right? So this is moving and this is growing slowly. Then we go into the consumer behavior aspect, which is do we really need to consume all these single items, right? But that's really going into each personal taste. But again, we could contribute a lot through that. And finally, another huge exploring, and I mean, this opens a lot of possibilities for research, is to act here before actually we produce the plastics. Can we substitute that material by something else? And here there are a lot of interesting initiatives all throughout the world. I just want to mention one from Southeast Asia, which is the company Abani. But I mean, again, there are many. This Abani company is producing a lot of houseware materials based on completely biodegradable substitutes from plastic, right? So just as a feed for inspiration for anybody. So this is what I wanted to show you. I didn't have much time. I'm gonna now stop the sharing so you see me again, hopefully. Well, doesn't matter. So this is my presentation. Basically, my message is it is a challenging thing. It's a global challenge, this plastic situation, but there is a lot of place for global solutions, for local solutions. And this is what I think the solutions are also going to come from. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much, Imanol, for this very interesting and informative presentation. Yeah, we have come to an end of the keynote sessions. I would like to thank again Antonis, Mavropoulos, and Imanol Zabaleta for sharing their presentations and their keynote speeches with us. And yeah, now it's time for me to hand over the virtual microphone to Mohammed, who will guide you through the rest of the program and moderate the next sessions. Thank you very much, and Mohammed, I hand over to you.
Mohammed, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. Hello again, I'm Mohammed Al-Samid, and welcome again to today's online conference, Effects of Improper Waste Management in Southeast Asia, Local Challenges, Global Solutions. Before we start our conference sessions, we will have two main sessions, and each session will have 3 speakers. So after each presentation, we will take 2 questions for that speaker, and we will have a longer Q&A session at the end of each 3 presentations. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our first presenter from Malaysia, Mr. Rutra Ratnam, whose presentation title is Waste Management in Indonesia. Just a brief about Rutra. He is an environmental officer at the Sea Turtle Research Unit at University Malaysia Terengganu in Terengganu, Malaysia. He got a Bachelor of Science in Marine Science, and his research interests include microplastic studies, and he works towards solutions for plastic pollution. Rutra, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mohammed. My name is Rutra, and I'm from Malaysia, and I'm a graduated last year. So without further ado, we shall just move on to the presentation. So let me just share the screen. Hold on, huh?
Yep.
What's going on?
I'm just sharing the screen, sir. Okay, done.
Yeah.
Can you all see?
Yeah, we can see it now. You can, yeah, yes. Now it is, yeah.
So can I start, sir?
Yeah, you may start now. It's clear.
Okay, good day to everyone. So today my topic will be on prospect of municipal waste management through waste to energy project in Indonesia, which is a country in Southeast Asia. My name is Rutra Ratnam, and today I'll be telling you all about mainly focusing on plastic. So previously, as per explained by Mr. Antonis on what is plastic, and also Mr. Imanol has actually given a detail on how we could recycle plastic. I would like to further do on explaining on the type of recycle that we can do on plastic, because individual recycle is not working for this current world. So apart from that, what can we do? So moving on, 60 to 90% of waste dumped into the ocean is made out of plastic. And this is a well-known data which is collected from a particular website. Secondly, what is microplastic and how is the chain of the microplastic? So let me just explain simply. First, let's see there are millions, or not so millions, billions of microplastic in the ocean, and it's eaten by small fish. The small fish is eaten by a squid. and the squid is eaten by a big fish, let's say like a grouper or a Asian barramundi, and finally the fish arrives in our plate, which is a cycle that comes, round and around, which doesn't stop. To our concern, I believe that this cycle has been started hundreds of years ago without our consent. Intentionally or unintentionally, it is still going on till this very moment and will be going on in future. So this is where the microplastic ends up in a human organ. To make it much simpler, the final product is it'll be in the intestines, or simply known as rectum. So waste to energy. What is waste to energy? So waste to energy is a specially designed energy generation facility that uses household waste as fuel and helps solve some of the society's big challenges. So let's see, we have this pile of rubbish over here, which is burnt and it turns into these ashes. These ashes can be used to generate 13,000 kilowatt of energy. So these are the samples of waste to energy application which is applied all over the world. We have in Florida as well, and the world's biggest waste to energy plant, which is to be built in China. We will have company to let 13 microwatt landfills gas to energy projects in South Africa. Dubai has issued a tender, and we have an industry flag concerns about upcoming EU emission limits for incinerators, which I believe that the incinerator plays a very, very big major role to ease our life, because not everyone, not every individual is hardworking or even considerate enough to recycle their own waste. What are the current status of waste to energy technologies in Southeast Asia? Since this conference is focusing on that, so let's move into that. So currently the total size of solid waste management market in Asia is estimated to be nearly 150 billion in 2010, growing at a compound annual growth of 4% approximately over the period of 5 years. It's estimated that the solid waste management sector will need nearly 85 billion of investment. So out of this data, we know that investing in solid waste management could be a loss, so-called loss for the policy makers, but I feel that they fail to understand the importance of it for the future generation. Collection and transfer involves 43%, mechanical and biological treatment involves 16%, waste to energy 23%, landfill and composing 12%. So these are the allocations made for these 4 particular sectors, which is, I feel that waste to energy needs more, because collection and transfer is a norm for every country. The process, let's just make it very simple for everyone to understand. How does this incinerator works and how we could convert the waste into energy? We'll make it just simple as possible for people's understanding. So first, the rubbish is burnt in a chamber, which is pretty simple. Coming up next, the heat is used to boil the water in the chamber. Up next, the resulting steam drives a turbine generator that produces electricity. And besides that, 3 million bricks is made out of the ash. So previously, the steam that drives the turbine generator, first, it produces electricity. Secondly, the burnt ashes can be used to make bricks. Lastly, over 30 million liters of water will be recovered from the trash. So there are already proven technology, and this technology has also been implemented in Nigeria. This technology is also currently being undergone in Indonesia in some parts as well. So this is the simplified version which I've explained. So what are the recommendations that we could do for the policymakers, or to be simpler, for the governments? First, promoting effective international technology cooperation. So what my presentation focuses is actually on the incinerator. My question to the policymakers and government is, instead of investing on many economical, yes, a nation, a country needs its economical development. Besides that, moreover, in 2018, I believe that life expectancy is much important than money. But I believe that not many policymakers, lawmakers, or even the government understand this because it is a simple human greed that when we have more money and when we see more money beside us, we would tend to collect all of it by ourselves. But thinking about our futuristic generation, I could say clearly that we will be one of the luckiest generation to look at our son, child, or even our grandchildren dying at such a young age due to pollution and even plastic. Secondly, waste hierarchy. We have to support the waste to energy industry because they have an important role. Okay, this is a waste hierarchy from Columbia University, and the top bottom one is actually added by Mr. Ranjit, which is unsanitary landfills and open burning, because previously it was only left out with landfills that do not capture CH4 methane. So I believe that unsanitary landfills is much important, and Mr. Ranjit has done his part in adding this into the hierarchy to reach the understanding of the human. And thirdly, policy effectiveness. As I see, effecting a policy or law or making it or tightening the law is no longer applicable for these days, because no matter what law the government does, we humans don't even tend to follow it. For instance, when there's a red light and that's the time we'll be speeding up, because important for us is not to follow the rules, but it's just for yourself. What about plastics then? And finally, this will be my final solution, which each and every individual should take up instead of relying on the government or any other policymakers. Self-realization. I believe this platform, ISWA YPG, is a very, very, very good platform to reach out to the people over there, understanding that each and everyone needs a self-realization on understanding how important this plastic pollution is. Maybe it's not for us. Maybe you're old now. Maybe you might die in 10 years' time. But then thinking about our future generation, I don't think so. We might be seeing them happy in future. Finally, I would like to tell about the law of karma. I believe that all of you are known about the third relativity law of Newton. So what it says that every action has the opposite reaction, and the same, the law of karma. What we do is actually what we get back in return. The plastic we throw in ocean is the same plastic that we get back on our table in the form of food, which we're actually having it every single day. And this is how it looks. This is the realistic of current generation. And we are aware about it, but we still tend to not care about it. Finally, these are the images of microplastics in a minor community of the marine organisms and zooplankton, fish larvae, and this is how the microplastic actually travels one by one to the part and finally reaches our table. And thank you.
Mohammed,
Is that the end of your presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for your insightful presentation. As a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane in your attendee control panel, and presenters will answer them during the Q&A session.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, now you will be listening to a presentation by Shiza Aslam from Pakistan, whose presentation title is Hand-Driven Energy Efficient Reactor for Biogas Production from Organic Solid Waste. Shiza is the co-founder of a youth-led organization in Pakistan, Don't Destroy, Don't Waste, Don't Destroy, aiming at helping spread awareness regarding the implications of human activities on the Earth's environment. Shiza studied environmental engineering at the University of Sciences and Technology in Pakistan, with a focus on financial visibility of waste management in developing countries. Shiza, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Mohammed, for calling me out, and ISWA and the VITO for providing me the opportunity. Before I go ahead, let me share my screen. Can you see it all?
Yes, we can see the screen now.
Yes, so I will be going to explain one of my work, that is a project we did under my bachelor's degree, and driven energy efficient reactor for biogas production from organic waste management. So basically, the idea was the organic waste is one of the most major component of the whole waste cycle in South Asian countries, specifically in Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and so on. Typically in Pakistan, there is 0.3 to 0.6 kg of waste generated per capita per day, with annual rise of 3.4% as the population growth is increasing and so on. So because of the improper waste management, collection system and the segregation, it caused environmental effects, economic and even health issues. And this caused to inadequate solid waste management system, because there is very limited recycling, collection and segregation. So what it imposes is impose critical environmental and social drawbacks to informal sectors specifically. And of course, we need the developing countries need clean and affordable energy. But the main focus of this study was to contribute to the carbon footprint of the whole food waste, because most of the South Asian countries lies on the equator of the earth, and because of that, they are highly vulnerable to climate change. And as you can see, the South Asian countries are producing around 350 kg of carbon dioxide per capita per year, and causing them being vulnerable to the climate change, as Pakistan itself is the 7th most vulnerable country to climate change. So we designed solid and aerobic solid waste management. Before I go further, let me just explain what anaerobic waste management is. So there is two types of waste, basically for organic management. There is composting and there is decomposition. In decomposition, we have anaerobic decomposition, like wet decomposition and dry decomposition. And both are hypoxic and anoxic conditions that are without oxygen. So what we did is we shredded waste so that the surface area could be enhanced and microbes could work more efficiently. Then we filled up the tank that we designed with organic waste up to 70%. The remaining 30% was left for the biogas to be collected. Inside the reactor, there was all of the material was kept for around 25 to 35 days. That is called the hydraulic retention time. During the hydraulic retention time, what happens is the waste is decomposed into smaller molecules and sub-molecules, like polymicron proteins and sugars are decomposed into lipids, and protein into nitrogen, and so on. All that happens inside hydraulic retention time, and the tank itself is highly dependent on the microbes or consortium itself. So therefore, the pH and all of the typical factors that it runs during the decompositions are highly dependent on the microbes. Therefore, we have to test pH and several of the factors. And at the end of the whole process, when it is done efficiently, biogas is produced as an end result and digested, as that can be used as a fertilizer. For our design, we assumed that through a literature review that gas composition of 150 and 300 liter biogas is enough to produce 1 meal per person per day. And therefore, we considered that 1 kg of kitchen waste is sufficient to produce 100 liters of biogas. And because the organic loading rate of 5 to 6 kilowatts of volatile solids per metric cube per day is sufficient to produce 100 liters of biogas. And as I also said already, that the hydraulic retention time, that is to keep the waste inside the reactor, that is 25 to 30 days. That is for the initial time period only. After that, the continuous waste can be put into the reactor on the daily basis and extracted, digested out to use the fertilizer as fertilizer. For our waste, we use cooked waste around 40.93%. Food waste was around 19.63%. Vegetable was 39.4%. Whole it together was 70%. As an inoculum, as I said already, this process is solely dependent on the microbes, and therefore the inoculums just facilitate and accelerate the process. So for that, we use cow dung as 50%. That was high in total solids, and then digested slurry that had liquid portion as well, 50%. So 80% of the total digester's volume was filled with substrate plus inoculum. For the batch phase, that is where we typically call the hydraulic retention time, we maintained a particle size of 30 millimeter, and initial feeding was up to 80%, 20% left for the biogas collection. Substrate was 54 kg as whole, and inoculum 22 kg as weight. Temperature conditions were mesophilic conditions, and pH was adjusted subsequently. So this is how our digester looked like. So here at the top we have the biogas outlet. We ensure that there are 2 biogas outlets in case if one just gets plugged off, so to let the gas flow out. Here we have a digested outlet. After the batch phase, one can put the waste on daily basis through inlet feed, and they subsequently have to take the digestate of a certain amount out, and that can be used as a fertilizer. This is a water jacket to ensure the mesophilic condition. The good thing about it is that we applied the principle of thermosiphoning, and we hardly have to fill it once or twice a month or so. Then we have the manual mixer, as it is hand driven, just to ensure the mixing and the process goes smoothly. And this is the biogas meter through which we recorded the biogas measurement. As I said, that this is highly microbial dependent process, so we have to measure several factors like pH, total nitrogen, and total ammonia nitrogen, alkalinity, and so on and so forth on daily and weekly basis. So here is one of the results. NRH, we recorded pH and alkalinity, and as we progress in the initial, the pH is low because there are several processes going on like hydrolysis and acidogenesis. So in the start, the pH is supposed to be low. Then it gradually rises up as the ammonia is produced, and that neutralizes the volatile acids already produced. And because of that, as we can see from the results, that ammonia inhibition occurred, which is a good thing because that can affect the microbial activities significantly. The biogas meter was used to measure the biogas reading, and we had daily measurement observation depending upon how it is working out, and we were eventually able to produce between 120 to 140 liters of gas. As explained, 100 to 300 liters are sufficient to produce 1 meal for 1 person. And all other criteria like BFA and alkalinity were in the range also, that indicated that the process went sufficiently and practically. In the conclusion, it is to be said that after all the 35 to 40 days of batch phase, we did a continuous phase, And throughout the process, it was observed that the successful startup of the reactor was achieved. We definitely had decrease in pH in the start, which is the normal thing, and then it because of the volatile fatty acid, and then it just went on a stable state. Then biogas production started once we all the factors are at optimum conditions. VSATS decreased with time due to solid degradation because of the hydraulic retention time and all the microbial activities. In the startup, we used 56 kg of food waste was used, and that has the potential of to reduce 7.84 meter cube of methane. That is the potential greenhouse gas, as we all know. And that can save up to 0.14 ton of carbon dioxide emissions. This just a small reactor is able to save our environment from 0.14 ton of carbon dioxide. So if it is localized and decentralized and established at various levels, it can be of potential use. Through its design modification, we were able to successfully say that it can be used at houses, cafeterias, restaurants, and even can be used as a decentralized system. As we believe that the aesthetic appearance of any product is very important, therefore we designed, not we, a friend of ours designed the marketing aesthetic design of it, the engineering design. Here are some of its design. We just shuffled a bit of its position vertically just to make it more friendly to the flats and balconies where it can be placed. And with this, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Thank you very much, Shiza, for your informative presentation. There are a question in the group chat. You might look at the question which was raised to you, but we will be you will be giving the answer to the question during the Q&A session after the third presentation.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Now from Pakistan to India. Let's welcome our third presenter from India, Mr. Visvesh Subramanian from Bangalore, India, whose presentation title is India's first digitized door-to-door waste segregation and collection monitoring solution. Visvesh is an IT consultant by profession. He works with Infosys Limited as a quality management consultant for a pharmaceutical client. He is also a founder and CEO for Waste Samaritan that has successfully piloted India's first door-to-door monitoring solution. He is also a member of ISWA and YPG and a volunteer with Bangalore Eco Team. Visvesh, you may start your presentation.
Hi all, Visvesh here. I'm an IT consultant by profession, as you just said, but I'm a solid waste management enthusiast. So I've primarily worked on a small scale project, but with a lot of technology involved. So I might have a lot of data to present, so kindly bear with me. It's sharing my screen. So I request the others to go on with this. Yeah, thank you. So this is a scenario in India. The first picture that you see here is of people not wearing helmets for their own safety. And what happens is that in Bangalore in India, we have traffic cops who catch people on the spot in the act of not wearing helmet, and then they maybe say levy penalties, and that is seen a transformation of people from say just this to all of them wearing helmets, including the pillion riders. So moving ahead, so we thought, why not do this for waste? So Waste Samaritan, a startup, right? We piloted India's first digitized door-to-door waste segregation and collection monitoring solution last year. So this, firstly, just a quick brief about Waste Samaritan. It was born at the Reimagine Waste Hackathon. Gayatri Anmal here, she is from Waste Impact, who organized this whole event. And SVP India actually funded this pilot project that we conducted last year. So here are some of the problem statements that we're trying to address. So there's something called the 2-bin 1-bag system that has been mandated by the government here, but however, there's still lack of proper segregation. So you're supposed to segregate into organics, your rejects, and then the recyclables. So that's the color coding. And the collectors, the waste collectors here always complain that there's lack of segregation, and hence they are not able to collect in a a segregated fashion. They're not able to streamline the collection process into different categories. And then there's also this illegal dumping of waste at what we call as black spots. They're just illegal garbage dumps where people bring over their waste in plastic bags and just dump them. And these when cleared, get into the landfill, and we're also running out of landfill space in Bangalore. So what we're dealing with is effectively, are these cases like that is ineffective segregation. There is no waste collector feedback system, and there are huge quantities and barely any resource recovery. And the other challenge is that data is not digitized or authentic. At least what I'm given to understand from the Indian scenario, data is not from source. So how do we, ensure its authenticity? So by not digitize it was the idea. So this is our solution in itself. So door-to-door collection and monitoring solution. I'll quickly explain this slide and then show you a video on how we do it. So our solution includes a WS Collector app, a mobile application, a WS Citizen app for the citizens, and a dashboard. So this is just the IT and the tech around it. And what happens is when we have door-to-door collection in place in India, and when the vehicle arrives, the Citizen app receives a notification on where that the collector is nearby, and each household is tagged with a QR code, right? And the waste collector who's equipped with a smartphone, he's a tech-savvy waste collector here, and he superficially examines the waste that is given out by this household, and he rates it on a scale of 5 as per the 2-bin 1-bag guidelines, and also captures a photographic evidence. So this data then moves on to our backend cloud database. It's also relayed back to the citizen on his app, for approval or disapproval on what the ratings are. So it's effectively a two-way feedback system that's happening here. And then this can also be used by the Resident Welfare Association, that is a local volunteer groups who would like to, sort of educate and, bring about awareness in their community based on who's segregating and not. And municipality can use this data to sort of levy penalties. So I think this data is going to be useful primarily for them, ideally. And so I'm just quickly showing you a video of how the collection process happens, and also a screen share from the apps. So the middle is the collection process. On the left, you have the Waste Samaritan collector app. On the right side, you see the Citizen app. So here goes. So this is the vehicle arriving. So I'm going to start off with a video of the Citizen app as well. So there you have this option to track the collector. You get there and you can see the collector's route that has been assigned to him for that particular day, right? And then in the backend, I'll just pause this video for a second. This is what is happening on the Waste Samaritan collector app. So he starts collection. He's recording his attendance for the day, and he starts off with the collection. So there you see him superficially examining the waste, right? Then he gives a particular rating, takes a photograph. I'm sorry, these two videos are not synchronous, but I'm just trying to explain the process in itself. So yeah, these are the photographs that he's taking, right? For different categories of waste, as you see on our app here, right? So there you see him scanning the QR code. Yeah, checks the waste. So there's also so at times if the citizens have come out to give their waste, there is also an active feedback. so saying what is wrong with the waste, so that people learn to segregate better the next time. And and also so this is the app, and I'm going to stop playing this video now. And yeah, so you see him giving the active feedback, and this video is done. So quickly, I'll finish with the citizen app as well. So the citizen can see who's the collector who's come for collection, the date and time at which the waste was collected, and the rating. And they also have a link to go see what the photograph that has been provided, so that they can go back always and fix where they've gone wrong. So here's the thing. And then there's another interesting feature. We have the community standing graph. So this is sort of to bring about some gamification, to say that you have everyone's data, which is like sort of masked. So the QR codes that you saw earlier, they were like, it had WS174. These are all generic codes. You don't have any household address or details being revealed. And so you can clearly see here that WS060 has influenced 5.8 and 5.9 on achieving proper segregation. This is on a scale of 5, the rating, and this is a particular household. So this has worked out in one way to sort of bring about this peer pressure and ensure that people segregate. So moving on to the next slide. Right. So we did this pilot last year, and this was done in Bangalore, India, and we chose this ward Dumlur, which is ward 112, and we did it within block 12. Actually, it's block 4 now. It's changed slightly. So it's block 12, and these are the streets that we covered. So as you can see, the scale of the project is really small scale for now, but then we did get a lot of data out of it. Out of the whole thing. So so we launched the pilot in mid-May, and we have staggered data over the next 3.5 months until the end of August. So when I say staggered data, they were initially just 80 households, and they were like QR codes only for these 80 households, and then we added QR codes at multiple points, and they're all reflected here. So I'll just quickly move to our dashboard where I can show you where all the data is present, and then show some results from there. So here is our dashboard, right? You see this is block 4 now. Total number of sites, and the total number of plots, and number of residential and commercial plots, we have data on them. And what is the average quality of segregation across the whole community that we've tagged, and what is the total, these are the data points that are captured on a particular day. So I think this had chosen somewhere like around July 28th. So you can see there is some amount of unsegregated waste being given out, and some people haven't given out waste at all, so no waste. So these are data points. This is just a measure. And then what an admin has to do is just scroll down a bit and just ensure that everything here looks as light as possible. So when I say that, better the quality of segregation, and so greater the rating. So your lighter shade indicates those across each category of waste. So this is dry, wet is your organic, and rejects. So, and you can also see the whole thing on a map interface here below. So you can identify, peer pressure and segregation patterns. So you can see these 2 households usually don't give out waste, and all that is all made available on our dashboard. And I'm going back to our slides. So you can see the impact that our pilot created. So from May 17th to August 2nd, initially it was only across 80 households, but over 152 houses. So we can clearly see there's been an increase in the 5-star rated waste. So that is purely segregated organic waste without a plastic lining. So that is the quality of segregation. And when I say 4-star, that is effective as well, because it just contains traces of paper or plastic, or it's barely anything in the. So you can see those segments having improved across all 3 categories. Right, moving on. So you can see that people actually learned to segregate perfectly over a period of time, and that wasn't too long. In fact, it was just around 9 to 10 days. So you can see on day 1 they just handed out their waste in a plastic cover, right? So that is illegal as per Bangalore rules. And then day 2 it was still the same. Day 3 they thought we were monitoring them, and then they were a bit scared, so they just kept 2 bags so that they wanted to show that they are segregating. But then finally, for the organic waste on day 6, a bin actually appears, a small bin, but there's still a plastic lining. And there's on day 7, there's still a plastic lining, but day 9 is like perfect. So post day 9, it's been like near perfect segregation across this household. And we have multiple data points. We have like tons of images actually to prove that people have learned to segregate and also effectively manage their waste. Right. So this is proven one by Globo, and this has been achieved. So this is another case where, so actually we in India at times have these multiple dwelling units. So just within one property, you have multiple portions where people, multiple families live. So case where, there are 3 families at least, and they've given out really good quality waste across the whole during the whole pilot, and that's there's data to suffice that. So yeah, and I have photographic. We have the photographic evidence as well coming up next. So we can see all 3 bins. The owner ensured that all tenants segregated organic waste without using a plastic lining as per the local municipality rules here. The wet waste, the recyclables, they've been handed over separately as well. And yeah, we can just quickly drill down on the data as well, because what you see is initially in the first few days, there were a lot of people who were giving out unsegregated waste, and that dwindled and reduced to like barely anything towards the end of the pilot. And those people who weren't being monitored started being monitored and started getting monitored, and then you have all their data points coming across from here. So you can see the change here. The black indicates unsegregated waste, the yellow is no waste given out, and I think the organic can dry up here. So I think that's clear. So we can also quickly see the same data on a map interface. So this is May 17th versus August 2nd. So we can quickly see the number of yellow and the black spots that it's for quick visual comparison. Moving on, we also,
Mr. Rizvish, do you hear me? Can you just wrap up faster, please, because we are running out of time.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. Thanks.
Another 3 minutes. Yeah.
Thanks.
2 minutes. Yeah. There's this one case where there's the households do not actually hand over waste at all. So what happened was that we figured out that the person who was actually running the bakery next to it is actually the person living. So he would mix his waste along with the bakery's waste. They would give it away to the local municipality, and there's another case where people there was this particular household that wasn't giving out waste regularly and giving out unsegregated waste quite a few times. So there was a vacant plot right outside their house, right in front of their house. So it used to be that we used to find garbage bags strewn around on the site, and this could be possibly one of the sources of these black spot generation. And data supporting the same. And then we've also been able to streamline the whole collection process. We've been able to streamline the recyclables waste collection for just Saturdays and Wednesdays. So we have that data. And then the collector also needs to perform his duties with diligence, because he's being tracked and monitored entirely. So the time and date at which he's reporting at a particular household and his location logs, everything is being tracked. So this is the impact and outcome in summary. Basically, the door-to-door monitoring ensure that households gave out the waste firstly to authorized collection teams, and also in a segregated manner. And there has also been a great reduction in the quantity of the mixed reject waste overall. And this also, as I already just said in the previous slide, it's just about the streamlining of collection as well. But this has had a lot of social impact on the waste collectors. They're treated with dignity and much better now, because they have tech in their hands and they have a say in people trying to complain against them. And what actually worked for us was a little bit of political support, because we need their permission and the municipality support, of course. The QR codes which tags every household, that was really effective. And during the surveys and the door-to-door campaigning, we did tell them about the QR codes and the whole project in itself. And also the first slide that you saw, the fear factor of paying a penalty actually transforms people, and that's what actually worked for us in this pilot. So this is the some images. You can see purely segregated organic waste being collected, and this was just the basic infrastructure that was required. So effectively, it was just transformation and behavioral change that we saw across the pilot, and we have data for that kind of a change that has happened. So thank you. I'm just done with my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wisvish, for this detailed and informative presentation about this modern and digitized door-to-door waste management, waste segregation and collection monitoring solution system. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
I would like to thank again all three presenters for your informative and interesting presentations. Ladies and gentlemen, now we come to question and answer session. So we will be reading, we have chosen some questions from the chat group. The first question is intended to Mr. Imanol. Imanol, are you still online?
I am here. Yes.
Yeah. Just I would like to repeat the question, which is directed to you. The question says, how can information and education contribute to change physical aspects of waste management systems in developing countries, such as dump site closure, and who should we target, and to give some insights on how? So because they said we usually see many efforts on reduction of waste by end users, but the overall waste system does not totally support the effort, with the unsustainable processes still prevalent along the life cycle of the products.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question. It's a great question. And my answer would be that information and education is required definitely at all levels in order to have an impact on solid waste management. So the key question is actually, who are we educating, as the person who wrote that question also asks, and why? Because that is going to tell us where we can expect an impact. So let's say we educate end users, right, like average citizens. So their impact will be basically twofold. First, they have an impact of which products they choose, because what they purchase, because in the end they will ultimately become waste. So that's where we can have an impact through education. And then we could include other criteria that they could consider when they do shopping. For example, recyclability of the packaging that of the product they are buying, right? And then the second side of where they can have an impact would be, what do they do with their waste? But the question that she's asking about the dump sites goes into a different level. Then we are talking about educating or informing more authorities or decision makers. So if they are receptive and willing to learn, because I mean, not in every country this is the case, this will have an impact on the overall strategy of the solid waste management of this city, right? And then in the case of the dump site, if this is not closed, then the authority, with all the information and with all the knowledge on waste management, should ask, okay, why are we not closing this? Is it because this is really the only possibility that we have to dispose our landfill, our municipal waste? Is the dump site already full? Is it badly managed? Can we actually improve it? Is there an alternative to this dump site? So then all these questions, you are able to ask all these questions once you have the knowledge. Without it, you won't think. That's why education is important. So then educating authorities will then be able to ask these questions and find alternatives, which could be, okay, let's first optimize our financial situation regarding solid waste management so that we have a bit of margin to invest in upgrading this dump site. Or maybe then they are able to find a completely different alternative, implementing source separation, etc. So it's complex, and my answer is education and information is required at all levels of stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Imanol. Now the second question is to Shiza. Shiza, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, the question says, have you included source segregation and selective collection into your project of treatment of organic waste, or it was mainly focused on the technical design of the biogas plant?
So I guess I didn't mention in my presentation. Yes, we did include source segregation and selective collection. We did inform and aware the staff and the cafeteria managers and the hostel managers. But I wouldn't say that we didn't have to segregate manually, because we did found grocery bags and stuff we didn't want it in our the waste. But yes, we did try to have source segregation and selective collection for our project.
Thank you very much. The third question is to Mr. Wizvish. They're just asking about how can they access the application, and whether you have considered using it for e-waste. How does this application work with large population? Could you just briefly answer this question in less than a minute, because we have to go for the break? Thank you very much.
Sure, Mohammed. Thanks for the question. We do plan to, sort of scale this up to any other required, category of waste. This is just basically telematics and monitoring a system. So you have data for the movement of material, men and material. This should be scalable, and right now the app isn't accessible on Play Store. The Waste Samaritan Citizen app is accessible on Play Store, but not yet the Collector app. I think our contact details are going to be shared after this call, so I think you can just reach out to us if you're interested, and we shall be more than glad to share more details.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the first session. I would like to thank again Rutra from Malaysia, Shiza from Pakistan, and Wizvish from India for sharing their informative and interesting presentations with us. And I would like also to extend our thanks to the audience who asked questions and made our Q&A session interactive. And now we will be having, since we are running out of time, we'll just have a 2 minutes break, and we will come back to continue the second session with another 3 presenters. So I will see you in 2 minutes. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. This is Mohammed Al Samit again, and welcome to the second session of today's online conference, Effects of Improper Waste Management in Southeast Asia, Local Challenges and Global Solutions. Without further ado, I would like to welcome our fourth presenter, Klara Vondrakova from Czech Republic, whose presentation title is Biofilter as an Optimization of Landfill Gas Treatment. Klara is a co-founder of the company Furalab Limited in Prague, Czech Republic, and her research interests including landfills, circular economy, and waste legislation. She got her Bachelor of Engineering from Faculty of Civil Engineering from Czech Technical University in Prague in 2009. And currently, she is a researcher at the University of Chemistry and Technology in Prague, University of Chemistry and Technology, Prague, Faculty of Environmental Technology. Klara, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for a nice welcome and the introduction of me, so I don't need to introduce me anymore. And my presentation will be about the landfill gas treatment. So let's start. It's here. And I hope that everybody can see it. As well, you already said the title. It's called Biofilter as an Optimization of a Landfill Gas Treatment.
Klara?
Yeah?
Have you shared the screen with us? Because we can't see the screen yet.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. That's okay.
I try to do. Yeah, share. Yeah, it should be now. Is it?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you that you stopped me now. Yes. Yeah. So let's go. First, about the landfilling, because still the landfilling is the most common way of the waste treatment and management, but it's at the bottom of the waste hierarchy, as we have heard today. So if a landfill must exist, it needs to be optimized and monitored. And in that case, we call it a sanitary landfill. And we look at three parameters, which are a leachate, a landfill gas that I will speak about, and a settlement. So a landfill, sanitary landfill, should have a proper gas and water system. I'm from the Czech Republic, as you have heard, and you can see where I'm from at the bottom of the screen. Here it's a Czech Republic. We don't have any seaside, I have to say, but we have the plastic waste, yeah, as well. So back to the landfills, we used to have the sewage dams till 1989, but later the first waste law was adopted, and as well the Ministry of Environment was established. So nowadays we can say that we have about 30 years of experience with sanitary landfilling. In our small country in the middle of Europe, we have about 180 active landfills, and we have much more of closed landfills. And both kind of landfills, active, I mean in operation, and closed, I mean in aftercare period, still pose a danger to the environment. And that's why I want to talk about the landfills and the landfill gas. But because we are in a European Union, we adopted a landfill ban, and it says that we should close the landfills in 2024. So this is our national goal. Yes, sorry. So about the landfill gas, I think that everybody from the waste management knows, but I will make a quick repetition. It's dangerous because it's a greenhouse gas. The most dangerous compound, it's a methane. It's explosive and it has another hazardous parameters. And how can be landfill gas treated? It can be used in cogeneration system that you can see on the first picture, or it can be eliminated in a gas flare. And the second possibility or third possibility is the biofilter or a biofiltration system, which is on the third picture. Here is a model of a biofilter that you saw on the third picture. Here is a photo and here is a simple drawing because it's a very simple technology. So it contains the upper part, which is made from organic material, and it's about 1 meter high. And the lower part that you cannot see on the picture here. So it's underground and it's filled by coke, and it can be about 0.5 meter high. Now I want to say how the biofilter works. So in the upper part is the filling of the methanotrophic bacteria, which makes the methane oxidation. I'll explain it. Here is a drainage that goes to the, gas drainage from the landfill that goes to the body of biofilter. And the gas contains the landfill gas, and the most dangerous part is the methane, as we said. The gas goes up through the body of biofilter, and as it meets the methanotrophic bacteria that are in the upper part, the methane is oxidized to CO2. And why? Because the methane is a greenhouse gas, so we should eliminate it, and its global warming potential is 25 times higher than the global potential of CO2. That's why we convert it to CO2. The next slide. Oh no. And all we do this because it's a legislative duty. And in European Union, we have the Landfill Directive that says about the landfill gas treatment and methane elimination. Here is a case of study. On the picture, you can see the Czech biofilter, which is consisted from the mix of wooden chips and compost. This biofilter is in a good condition. It's monitored every 6 months. And here on the top, we made 3 controlling points, which we monitored under surface and on its surface. The most dangerous compound is a methane, and we found very low concentration, like 0.5%. As well, we found the 0 of methane. Here is the picture of controlling well, which is in front of the biofilter. And here is analyzer that we use for measurements. I would like to mention something about the maintenance and monitoring. For the maintenance, you have to exchange the upper part of the body of biofilter. It says once per 3 years, but it depends on the situation and localization of the biofilter. And monitoring, we monitor it from 2 to 4 times per year. Here on this picture, you can see the biofilter in winter. And for the maintenance and monitoring and everything around the biofilters, we have the Czech technical regulation. And I mention biofilters because I would like to recommend it for the Southeast Asia and especially for Malaysia, because you should improve the gas management system on landfills, not only the drainage and wells, but as well the end of the gas treatment, which first can be the use of energy, like energy source in cogeneration systems. It's in the case of active landfills, and for the closed landfills, the landfill gas should be eliminated. When it's eliminated without energy use, the biofilter is a good optimization. It's better than a flare because the gas flare, it's more dangerous, and as well it has some emissions to the atmosphere. About the biofilters, we have more than 20 biofilters in the Czech Republic, and we can provide this experience. Yeah, and this is my last slide. I would like to say that the environment is first, and I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Clara, for showing this interesting background about waste management in Czech Republic and the insights that you gave about this biofilter to treat landfill gas. As a reminder, you can still submit questions to ask Clara about this biofilter used to treat landfill gas. And we will be back to answer those questions during the Q&A session for this second session of the conference. Ladies and gentlemen, now you will be hearing a presentation by Adeline Mertenet from Switzerland, whose presentation title is Black Soldier Fly Bio-Waste Treatment, a way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Just a brief about Adeline. She is a member of the YPG, ISWA YPG since 2016, and an active member of the education group. She got her master's degree in environmental engineering from Swiss Polytechnical School, and she worked on solid waste management issues in Latin America for 1.5 years before starting to work for EAWAG in Switzerland. Her main research focus is on organic waste management in low and middle income countries. Adeline, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Mohammed. So let me first share you my screen.
Yeah, we can see the screen now clearly.
Now it works?
Yeah, it works.
Great. So
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to my presentation entitled Black Soldier Fly Bio-Waste Treatment, a way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And before introducing you to our star, or the stars of my presentation, the so-called Black Soldier Fly, let me very shortly go back to some important facts related to solid waste management in low and middle income countries. As you already saw in many different presentations before, that's how collected solid waste looks like or end up in low and middle income countries. This picture is from actually Jakarta, where you can see Jakarta's dump site, where you have around 1,000 trucks per day coming to dump their waste, they mixed waste, and among which actually 60% is organic. And as we already saw in different presentations before, this specific waste fraction actually naturally degraded over time and is responsible of a huge amount of greenhouse gas emissions. So for each ton of bio-waste, 3.78 tons of CO2 equivalent are released, which is obviously contributing a lot to global warming. And for that, you can do either two things. Do like Clara mentioned before, upgrade the dump sites or try to collect the greenhouse gas emitted, or you can also treat the organic waste. And luckily enough, there is a lot of bio-waste treatment that exists. We already saw one previously on biogas production. You have also some composting, which is possible, which is actually the most widely used treatment option for organic waste. But the only problem with that is that the success of treatment or recycling process is always driven by some economic factors. So if you have a real value for your product, you are in the safe side. If not, well, you might have some issues. And that's unfortunately what happens, for example, with compost. Composting is great in terms of greenhouse gas emission reduction. It's also a very good project, but the problem is that compost doesn't have a very high market value. So it doesn't allow much profit, and it's hardly economically sustainable when it's not subsidized. So actually, we need a product with high market value in order to succeed in treating the waste. And after doing some market analysis, what my colleagues figured out was that actually there is an actual need to find environmentally friendly alternative to animal feed, and especially protein production. So that's when the question about producing protein from waste come up. So now let me show you why producing protein from bio-waste does make sense. This is an example from the conventional animal feed production. So historically, animal feed production was relying heavily on fish meal from fisheries. So the principle was kind of simple. You had some wild fishes that you will fish, then produce some fish meals that you can use in aquaculture. So far, so good. But if you look at it in terms of numbers, we need actually around 4 kilos of fresh fishes in order to produce 1 kilo of fish meal. And unfortunately, we are so slowly reaching the limit of production. And among the alternatives for a fish meal, we have oil crops, for example, but they need extended area. And so they pose actually a real environmental and social issues. So we need better alternative. And that's when our Bsf enters in the game. Bsf larvae, because of its high protein content, is actually a good candidate for a fish meal substitution in animal feed. And that's how it looks like. The idea is the following. You have some bio-waste, you put some larvae in it, you let it grow, and then you can give it for animal feed. And in terms of number, that's how it looks like. You need 8 kilos of waste, around 6,000 larvae to produce 1 kilo of fish meal. So far, so good. But now now that we know that we have a valuable product on the market, the question is, how does this work? And to answer this question, it's time to look at the Bsf Lifecycle and Characteristics. So here you go. You have here a Bsf adult, and as an adult, they live around 5 days. And during this period of time, the only preoccupation is to find another fly and mate. Then during this time, actually, they don't even eat, so which is great because it doesn't make them a vector of diseases. After that, the female will lay eggs, around 350 eggs per female, which is a lot. And then after 4 to 5 days, the eggs will hatch, and you will have some small larvae. And actually, the small larvae can feed on everything: food and market waste, animal manure, slaughterhouse waste, human excreta, and everything. And the idea is that then you have some very teeny larvae from 1 millimeter, you mix it with waste, and you let them grow and eat during 14 days. So they grow, they eat the waste reduces, and then after 14 days, you have a big larvae, which is now 2.5 centimeter and around 200 milligram. Then they start changing colors slightly. Then they come more grayish, and they enter in the prepupate phase. That's when they are looking for a shaded area to pupate. The pupation phase lasts around 14 days. And then the cycle starts over again. So to summarize, the great thing about it is that first, the larvae feed on everything and allows a waste reduction. Then the second thing is that larvae are rich in proteins and fat and can actually substitute fish meal in animal feed. And last but not least, the adults don't eat, so there is a minimized risk of diseases transmission. Great. Now, if we look at it from a Bsf, when we look at Bsf from a bio-waste perspective, that's how it looks like. So here we have a bio-waste treatment scheme. First, we have the waste entering the treatment plant. It has to be bio-waste without plastic or anything. Then you can have some waste pre-processing steps, like shredding, for example. Then you have the treatment phase, which takes place in boxes that you can actually build up to not take up so much space. And so in each boxes, you will put some waste and also some teeny larvae that we just saw that are actually coming for the rearing phase, where the natural life cycle that I just showed occurs. Then you have to separate the residue from the larvae in the product harvesting phase. And then with the residue, you can do some residue post-processing, which is most of the time composting. And then you have also some larvae refining, for example, drying, boiling, etc., etc. And then you can use it as animal feed. Actually, from a technical perspective, it works well and it's relatively simple. And we know well how it works. We even have a handbook available that explain you step by step how to operate such a system. So far, so good. But still, there is a question which remains. It's what about green gas emission and environmental impact? It would be very sad to have a solution which is actually even worse than just putting waste in dump sites. So to figure that out, what we did is that we measure methane and N2O in a Bsf treatment plant in Indonesia. So we sealed some treatment box for a while, as you can see in the first picture. Then we took some regular samples from the airspace. Then we measure methane and N2O with gas chromatography device. And then we calculated the related global warming potential. And we compared it to composting and open dumping. And the data that we used from composting was from CDM methodology for UNFCCC and open dumping from some literature data. And what you can see in this logarithmic scale is that actually Bsf is way lower in terms of direct emission than composting or open dumping. So around 55 less for Bsf than composting and around 1,600 times less from open dumping. So far, again, so good. But actually direct emissions are not the only type of emission that can damage the environment. So we also consider the indirect impacts in our LCA studies. And that's how our results look like. So on this graph, you can see the contribution of each element to the overall global warming potential expressed in kilogram of CO2 equivalent per ton of waste. What we can see first here is that in this orange thing, which represent like 69% of the overall global warming potential, it's that actually the residue post-composting was releasing a lot of greenhouse gases. So we need to somehow improve this post-composting phase if we want to reduce the global warming potential of this technology. Then a second thing, you can see that in blue, we have the energy consumption, which is actually mostly electricity consumption. And what we saw is that the electricity consumption can influence a lot the results, depending on first, how much you do it manually versus using machines, and then also about the electricity source. So for example, if you would use electricity from coal power plant, like in Indonesia, the results are really different than if you use hydropower from Switzerland, for example. And according to our calculation, this can increase up to 55% the global warming potential of this technology. And last but not least, we have some benefits from the fishmeal substitution. What we see in that graph is that the global warming potential savings can actually vary a lot depending on which substitute for fishmeal you do. So for example, if you normally substitute fishmeal that is produced locally or for far away, this will change the transportation. And then if you substitute fishmeal produced industrially or very simply, like manually, this would also influence a lot the results. So thanks to this research, what we can conclude is that first, Bsf is not only interesting for its high larvae meal market value and also the simple requirements, it's also a highly environmental friendly solution for bio-waste treatment compared to open dumping, obviously, but also even compared to composting. So actually, when we did our calculation and based on our data, we can see that composting is even double the global warming potential of Bsf. So, and with that, I will finish my presentation. So thanks for your attention. Here you can see the whole EAWAG Bsf team. And if you have some questions, well, you can, please contact me.
Thank you very much, Adeline, for this very interesting presentation about your research, which combines technical solutions and market value and life cycle assessment as well. Just as a reminder for our audience, they can still submit questions to ask Adeline about this black solid fly bio-waste treatment technique. And she will be replying to your questions during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, now we have come to our last presentation from Morocco. So let's welcome our sixth presenter, Fatima Zahra Bukhari from Morocco, whose presentation title is Food Waste in Qatar, a Crisis of Abundance. Just a brief about Zahra. She is a business entrepreneur working in the medical waste management sector in Qatar. She got to know about Hifz An-Ni'ma Social Center, which she will be talking about today in her presentation, while she was doing a market study on food waste in Qatar. And then she joined Hifz An-Ni'ma Center as a volunteer to know more about how the center been trying to divert this excess food from feeding landfills to feeding the needy since 2008. Zahra, you may start your presentation.
Thank you so much, Mohammed, for this great introduction. I know we're running a bit late, so I'm going to start sharing my screen with you right away. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, now we can see the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So usually when we talk about food crisis, usually we talk about a shortage of food and finding new ways to come up with new foods to end food insecurity. In the case of Qatar, we have a crisis, but it's a crisis of abundance. We have too much food and too much of it is being thrown away. Food waste is not only socially and morally irresponsible, it's also a huge burden on the environment. This very interesting chart by the Food and Agriculture Organization puts the environmental impact of food waste into great perspective. It shows that if food waste was a country, it would be the third largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions after China and the US, with a volume of 4.4 gigatons of CO2 equivalent released each year. These numbers are from 2012. So with that in mind, and also with the huge economic losses that go with food waste, we came up with Hifz An-Ni'ma in Qatar in 2008. Hifz An-Ni'ma in Arabic stands for rescuing the blessing or saving the blessing, and blessing in Arabic stands for food. So we're basically rescuing food. Hifz An-Ni'ma is a food recovery program that started back in 2008 to collect excess food from supermarkets, restaurants, hotels, private events, public events, and redistributes them to the food insecure in Qatar. So basically what we're doing is we're feeding people instead of feeding landfills. So before we go ahead and tell you more, I'd like you to take a look at our vision, mission, and values. So our vision is basically a waste-free Qatar. Our mission is to achieve food justice by utilizing the available resources that we have. So we're not asking people to cook more food for us to feed the needy, or we're not asking farms to produce more food. We're just taking whatever is already there. And if we don't take it, it's going to end up in the landfills anyway. So by doing that, we're benefiting the poor, we're educating the rich, and we're protecting the environment. Our values, basically food justice and community involvement. So these are just a few numbers that will give you better insight of food waste in Qatar. Qatar is has one of the highest per capita food wastages in the world. So it's up to 1.8 kilogram per day per resident. Just to put that into perspective, that's 3 times the number that I think Shiza gave earlier for Pakistan, which was 0.8, I believe. So that's 3 times the number in Pakistan. 60% of all the municipal solid waste in Qatar is organic, is from food leftovers. That's more than 1 million tons. And only less than 5% of that is recycled or composted. So we can all agree that this is an ecological threat. And by taking this food and diverting it and redistributing it to the needy, we're basically turning this threat into a social opportunity for social cohesion. And we're doing that through a multi-layered approach. The first one is what we're known best for, is the leftovers redistribution. We have a call center where we receive the food collection requests. We have a fleet of about 10 trucks. So we receive the calls, We go there, we collect the excess food, we bring it back to our premises, we process it, we repackage it, and then we redistribute it. And the whole process is done within 4 hours because we're fully compliant with international hygiene regulations for food redistribution programs. The second one is by having a local dry foods bank. So these are mainly dry foods donated to us by supermarkets. So basically foods that are near an expiry date, for example, canned foods, oil, etc. And these can be distributed monthly to families. We have a database of hundreds of thousands of families that we have previously assessed financially, so we know they are eligible. The third one is by having seasonal initiatives. The one we're working on right now is having leftover bags in malls, restaurants, to encourage people to take their leftovers with them. The fourth one is by having educational campaigns. So we go to universities, schools, public events, and we talk about food waste numbers, and we try to come up with new ways, new strategies within the community to reduce food waste in Qatar. So this will give you a better idea of what we do. These are our achievements for 2017. For 2017, we've distributed 372,000 meals, individual meals. We've distributed more than 15,000 boxes of fresh produce, so mainly fruits, vegetables that were given to us by farms, fruits and vegetables which could not be sold, for example, so which would have ended in landfills anyway. More than 60,000 items of dried food, so oil, canned foods, etc. The beneficiaries per year. So when we started back in 2008, 28,000 people benefited from our services, and this number jumped to 386,928 individuals in 2017. So this shows the great support that we've had from the community and from the government. So this is for the social aspect of our achievements. Now, for the equally important, the environmental aspect of our achievement can be seen in this chart. So we use the formula from the EPA government website because we're not scientists, we're mainly social workers and volunteers. So we use this formula to retrieve the volume of gas emissions that we recovered or that we avoided by translating the weight of collected food into kilograms. So this might not be 100% accurate, but I'm sorry. It might not be 100% accurate, but because so many factors were unknown to us, but it gives a good insight. So since we started back in 2008, we have diverted more than 1,500 tons of food, which translates roughly into 5,070 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. However, Hifd al-Ni'ma only intervenes at the end of the spectrum of food waste, which is the domestic food waste. But 50% of food waste occurs long before that, from the moment the food is harvested, transported, manufactured. So it takes a whole village. It takes a teamwork with food recovery programs like us. We need public involvement with policies, like, for example, landfill fees. We don't have that in Qatar. We need policies like, for example, now in France, supermarkets are required by law to give their unsold to charities. We also don't have that. We need community-driven initiatives, private initiatives, like some of those we heard about today, which were absolutely great. And now some of you might be wondering what we're doing here today. This is a conference about Southeast Asia, but we are looking for global solutions, and Hifd al-Ni'ma really is a global solution. Thanks to its global applicability. Hifd al-Ni'ma model can be applicable anywhere. It's not restricted to demography, to geography, to economy, or to resources. It can be applied in developed countries and developing countries, because they both produce approximately the same quantities of food. This is according to the Food and Agriculture Organization. And our program can be scaled basically nationally, regionally, or even as a community initiative. We can start as a community initiative in a neighborhood, see how it works, and then it can be scaled nationally or regionally. And we are also committed to assist other communities which are willing to implement our program with as much as we can. So with studies, logistics, with training and consulting. And also lastly, We know that this is not a scientific breakthrough. This is, above all, a humane and social initiative, which also happens to be great for the environment. And sometimes the best solutions are the easiest ones. So I'd like to thank you all for your attention, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Zahra, for your presentation and your explanation about the project and how it can be implemented in other areas, in other regions, especially in Southeast Asia, which is our focus of this conference. Thank you very much. I would like to thank again all our speakers for the second session for sharing their research with us in their presentations. Very well, ladies and gentlemen. Now we come to the second question and answer session for this conference. So we have few questions from our audience. The question is directed to Clara. Clara, are you online?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, this is a question from India. The question says, we have huge mountains or huge amounts of garbage having legacy waste old, more than 30 to 40 years old. The question says, is landfill mining a feasible solution to make these mountains disappear?
So may I start to answer? Yeah?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So here are several aspects of landfill mining. It depends what you want to do with the garbage, with the waste. If you want to use the material, or if you want the land use of the landfill, and as well if you have a possibility what to do with the garbage, if you have some waste to energy facility or incinerator where it can go. So I know we have the same landfills in the same age, and mostly they are consisted from the municipal solid waste. So then the degradation, which was anaerobic, it's the same composition. It's like the soil-like material. Oh, yeah. So if the question is, it's possible, yeah, it's something that will be in the future for sure, that the landfill mining is a topic, what to do with the landfills.
Yeah, thank you very much, Clara. We have the second question directed to Adeline.
Yes.
Yeah, the question says, person asks whether organic waste streams from households tend to have plastics contamination of some sort. So what degree of contamination can BSF handle, the system that you mentioned? Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a good question. Actually, BSF doesn't do much with plastic because they're feeding on waste. So if you have plastic in the waste, they will just not eat it. But then the problem is that, I mean, you can still have some microplastic going to the guts of the BSF. This, I mean, like fishes and everything is still problematic. But then the most problematic thing is actually with the residue, because then the plastic will stay in the residue. And then when you do some composting, you cannot really sell this product. So actually, BSF as such can handle somehow the plastic, but it's still like for all kind of bio-waste treatment, it would be really way better to have a way well segregated bio-waste source and pure of organic waste. Otherwise, it's very tricky to treat it.
Oh. Thank you very much. Clara, again, there is another question for Clara. It's about the biofilters for LFG. Question says, don't you expect a decrease in the efficiency of converting methane into water and CO2 throughout the year due to temperature fluctuations, depending on weather conditions? Could you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I maybe did not highlight it enough that the biofilter is run by methanotrophic bacteria. And this kind of bacteria exist all over the world. It means they are from equator to tundra. And if it's winter, they can change their family from the type 1 to the type 2, which lives in the colder condition. From my experience, the biofilter is working during the winter. Only the difference is that during summer, when you compare the temperature of the surface and subsurface temperature, I mean like 50 centimeters in the body of biofilter, the difference can be 50 degrees. During the winter, it can be 10, 20 degrees, but still there is methane, which is eliminated at the surface of biofilter in the winter as well. So we have winter in the Czech Republic, and as I monitored the biofilters, it was working.
Thank you very much, Clara. You can see here we have no more questions to ask for this session. I would like to thank every participants for your incredible interactive presentations. And big thank you to our audience from around the world who have joined our conference today. Just as a reminder, the best 3 presenters for today will be announced tomorrow in our website, and they will be contacted via email. And the 3 winners will have free access to the ISWA World Congress 2018 in October this year in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And they will have the chance to present their abstracts during the YPG special session. Also, all presenters will get their certificates of participation in this conference. They will be sent to their emails, and the abstracts will be published in the conference book, which will be available in our website soon. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of the first ISWA YPG online conference, Effects of Improper Waste Management in Southeast Asia, Local Challenges, Global Solutions. On behalf of all the organizers and committee members, I would like to express my utmost gratitude to all distinguished speakers, presenters, audience, and members of this floor for making this event a success. Now I would leave you with a quote by Stewart Brand, an author and innovative thinker, who once said, "We can see the past, but not influence it. We can influence the future, but not see it." Let's all be guided by all the things we have learned and heard throughout the conference, and be able to see and influence our future for a better waste management in this world. We seek your forgiveness for our shortcomings, if there are any, throughout the conference. Until we meet again, perhaps in the next conference, may all of you remain safe and happy. This is Muhammad Al-Samit. Thank you very much. See you.
See you guys. Have a good day, good night, good evening.